If you're a writer or even someone who's simply taken a creative writing course or seen a tutorial on how to write, chances are you've encountered the advice, show, don't tell. But what does that really mean? And is it really as daunting as people make it out to be? Hi, my name is Jess and welcome back to Writer Makes Videos, and today I'm going to be debunking the idea of show don't tell. Not so much trying to subvert the idea, but rather make it a little bit more accessible. So, Wikipedia defines show don't tell as a narrative technique used in various kinds of texts to allow the reader to experience the story through actions, words, subtext, thoughts, senses, and feelings, rather than through the author's exposition, summarization, and description. So the idea behind show don't tell is that you want immersion. You want your readers to connect to your characters and understand what they're going through without telling them necessarily exactly what your characters are going through. You want them to kind of infer and feel the feelings out for themselves, but sometimes you need to tell them what's going on. A typical example of showing versus telling. In telling, I walked through the forest. It was already fall, and I was getting cold. It's very direct, it's very informing the reader exactly what is happening without much room for understanding what the setting perhaps feels like, other than it's fall and it's cold. Those are things that we can understand pretty easily, and I don't think it's the worst example of telling, but it's definitely a little lackluster. So the example that Reedsy shows is the dry orange leaves crunched under my feet as I pulled the collar up on my coat. Now with that, you kind of put yourself in the character's shoes. You're hearing the leaves crunch, you're seeing the orange in the air, you're feeling that briskness as they pull their coat up. It's a lot more immersive. Are the two really that different? I think so. And a lot of people would immediately disagree with me and say, of course they're different. Of course, the second one, the showing version, is clearly trying to convey fall and, the feeling of being cold, and you get so much more visuals from it. And I think that's what showing versus telling really boils down to, is the idea of visualization. And in visualization, it's really getting your reader to use their own imaginative eyes and really telling them to experience things without spoon feeding it to them. And while I think having your main character, if they are speaking in a first person sort of way, saying, I feel cold, I don't think it's the worst thing, but there's ways that you can expand on it without feeling like you have to come up with all of these really colorful phrases and very obscure terms in order to cautiously avoid over explaining or telling something. So the way that I taught myself show don't tell is not to be afraid of telling the story. So I broke it down in a couple of different ways. One, I wanted to tell the readers what they're seeing. Like, what are they looking at? What is in our characters' immediate surroundings? Then I wanted to tell my readers what my characters were thinking through visible cues. Are their brows furrowing? Are they kind of rubbing their hands together? Are they just kind of crossing their arms? Are they sitting in a corner? Are they a little pensive? And you can evoke all these different kinds of emotions while just basically telling your reader what you want them to see. You want them to see that your character is angry. So you've got this furrowing brow and this kind of like snarling lip. Those are all things that you can use to engage your reader a little more closely into interpreting a lot better what this anger looks like on your character. Because you want to tell your readers the tangible details. You want them to experience the things that your characters are touching and interacting with, and perhaps, especially the sites that they're interacting with. You want them to really engage as if they were your main character, or perhaps maybe just walking alongside them. And then finally, how these all fit together. You show how they all fit together. One of the big things that I decided to do was reframe my thinking. So on the expansion of reframing your thinking, it is easy to take a look at the examples of show don't tell and think that you need a bunch of extraneous exposition on the surroundings and to avoid the word felt at all cost. Take a breath. Every time you want to write how your character feels, pause. How does that feeling manifest in you? Are your hands clammy? Does your heart race? Is there a bead of sweat upon your brow? Now apply those occurrences to the scene. If your character is going through something that's really just anxiety ridden. Like, how does anxiety manifest in you? Or how have you seen anxiety manifest in other people or other characters? And writing that can help alleviate the, the feeling of wanting to write the word felt. So my character felt anxious versus my character's palms began to be sweaty and they felt their heart race and they started to retreat from the other characters in the scene. That's what you can utilize to help convey all of those things without saying my character felt anxious. The idea with all of this is that you're already showing your readers what your character is feeling by telling them what is happening. Show, don't tell is really just combining the two things to make it all make sense. One of the best ways to go about show, don't tell, especially if you're perhaps new to the craft, or if you're finding that the examples are a little bit mundane and you feel like, again, you're going back to this idea of having to over explain what you're trying to accomplish, my best piece of advice is to root yourself first. If you know the details of the setting and you're well acquainted with your characters, like they're real people, you can bring strangers in and show them around easier. And by strangers, I mean your readers. You want them to feel like they can hop into the scene and they can interact separately from the main character, that they can see the items on the table, they can listen to the sounds outside as they're watching your main character in action. Showing and telling, at least how I've come to meet them, is a hand-in-hand operation to bring the scene to life. I must tell my readers what is happening in the scene as if they were standing in the same room as the characters. As I mentioned before, rooting yourself and understanding your story is really important. Not just the plot, not the overarching arcs of your characters, none of that. Being in the scene that you're writing, being present in the scene that you're writing with your characters and knowing that they're real people and seeing them as such, you can remove yourself and become your own reader in your own story. Because in this way, I must tell my readers what's in the scene as if they were standing in the same room, and then I can give them the inside scoop into the characters' heads as a little treat. That's how I view this relationship of show, don't tell. I need to show my readers this is what my characters have access to. This is what our people in this scene are seeing and interacting with. And now that you know those things, now that you're watching our characters operate, now you get a glean inside their mind. You get to hear their inner thoughts. You get to see them up close and watch our main characters' reactions to other characters in the scene. And you get kind of this bird's eye view while also bringing the camera back down and looking at the scene together. And with that, you're giving your readers the lens and letting them look around. What you tell your readers is showing them what to pay attention to. And you can use that to direct their gaze away from that sneaky little plot twist you've got going on, or to really hone them in on the idea that you need to drive home. Give them enough to wade in some waters as your characters and the raft so your readers never feel lost. So my examples, and I've written these on my Instagram posts as well, so if you'd like to go ahead and check that out at JMTesta, I encourage you to do so you can reread them. But my examples are: no one wants to be told it's cold, they want to feel cold. No one wants to be told your character is scared, they want to feel scared for themselves and for your characters. People want to be told what is in a scene that they're looking at, so show them the landscape and the room. Show your readers the subtle shift in the side character. Don't tell them the MC is about to be betrayed. And then show your readers the door into your world. Don't keep them looking through a window. Overall, I find this perhaps maybe a little nuanced in the way that we're always struggling to find the perfect words as writers. We're always trying to ensure that we're following all of the rules most of the time. But I think that there's a good point in trying to relearn the tools that we've been given in order to know when to properly break them. If you like this and you want to follow along on my series on debunking popular writing advice, feel free to follow along here and on my Instagram. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.